Yeah, I mean this piece of like building this really robust model of the game though is kind of how what speaks to me is like the precision that you're talking about. It's like you have this really robust model and the felt sense of it, and then you move one thing and your instinct is like is what stands out as like that thing that moved shifts what we do, right? Like all these like the signal through the noise really cuts through.
Yeah, because it's also fragile. Like, if a solver says like, oh, you have to bet 30% and check 70%, like, I mean, what that's really saying is there's this imaginary scales saying like both of these options, like every single factor we put on each side of the scales adds up to perfectly the same. Like, if you take one thing off one side of the scales, it's not like the scales moves a little bit, like it just completely tips. And so then if someone's like really like if someone knows all the factors and then can just remove one or like add one at very high confidence, then the whole thing just sounds like it just suddenly becomes like really like yeah, it becomes really, really clear. And I think a lot of people like they don't think it they can sort of understand that, but they haven't necessarily internalized that that's actually what's happening in a decision.
Hey guys, just so you guys know, it does take a lot to produce this content for you. So if you appreciate what I do here at the channel, I would really love if you guys could both like and subscribe and share this content with anybody that you think might appreciate it. As well as that, there's a link below for donations. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, donating to the channel is a great way to do it. So if that's something you're interested in, please do so below. Yeah, and I think that knowledge makes you go hunting for the thing that has moved, right? Like when you're in a game, I view myself as a less precise player when I play and more like just what is the thing that I'm most concerned with? Like but I think that sense, there was I had a phase of life of being very like more rigorous. And I think when you know that things can just shift so much, it just primes you to constantly be looking for that thing. I'm curious your thoughts on this. I don't want to this is starting to sound a lot like a conversation I had with Uri, so I don't want to repeat it too much. But I'm curious your thoughts on just like running. This is also why I favor a kind of like test and see what happens kind of approach, where it's like I feel like this is what's happening, and like no matter how this hand goes, I'm going to learn whether or not that's true. Whereas I feel like a lot of people are preoccupied with like doing the thing they think is good and not like trying to find where the scales are out of balance in people. What does that
Yeah,
bring to mind for you?
I think sometimes people can be paralyzed by like they're like searching for certainty in. I mean, like this can mean a lot of things, but like in poker's like a microcosm of this, where if you want to only do good plays when you're certain of them, okay, sure you'll make a lot less mistakes, but you're like the ceiling which you're playing at is so much lower. And also something which I often say to people, which I think people like they hate hearing because they agree with it, but it's not advice they're happy to follow, is that you've just got to go out there and like you've got to go out there and make enough mistakes to develop the feel for what a mistake feels like. You've got to go out there and like try to hunt some stuff down and get it wrong, and then look back on it afterward. Well, yeah, I mean, and this is the key step, which stops a lot of people improving because they skip this. is then when it goes disastrously wrong, you don't want to think to yourself like, oh, like I can see this is wrong now and just move on. Like you want to work out why it's wrong, but you can also there's also another like sort of meta stage to it of being like, okay, what made me make this mistake? Like what was the like what exactly happened in game that like meant that I got to an answer that I can now identify I shouldn't have. Um, like that, there's lots of things which can happen. Sometimes you'll have like a bunch of high stress decisions happening at once, and then like all of them just become a bit hazy around the edges. Such is the nature of online poker. But there can also be things, like everyone has emotional biases. Um, there can be like lots of stuff like coming up in the session, like giving too much weight to a certain factor, and then afterwards you might be like, oh yeah, like I just thought too much about this, but you might not realize it's a pattern. Like sometimes like it like all of us have like internal biases, and if you just kind of write them off as like, oh yeah, I made this mistake. Like I thought the guy was running a bluff for this reason, but then like you always think they're running a bluff for that reason, and it's never right. It's like
Yeah.
you're just consistent. Like yeah, actually a big problem I had when I first started with Gorilla was I would just like uh I would just sort of what project my own thought process because I was like I was always like especially back then I was quite spewy. I was like I feel like
And so
now
you think
it's
everyone's bluffing in every spot, like
yeah
yeah.
yeah I mean especially a high stakes reg because basically like I got to like 1K within like I can't yeah like a year 18 months or something like that, so I'd moved up in stakes pretty fast, and always the way I'd moved up in stakes whenever I'd had trouble getting up in stakes was just finding more bluffs like
Right.
I did
Yeah.
not know. I did not know how to play a value hand until 5K now. I swear. Like had, I had no precision or technical game. I just had like a really really aggressive triple barrel, and it was just hard to fucking deal with. like
Yeah.
um and so yeah, that was my whole thing. And then I'd be going up in stakes, and they would just be like it's just like, oh, Owen, like everything's got there, and you still call down this net. And I was just like, everything's got there, so he'd bluff, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Which
so much fun.
there's something to that, but yeah, I know what you
Yeah,
mean
yeah,
though. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and they're just like, dude, he doesn't have these combos in his
Yeah.
range.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't barrel turn with them. He did
yeah,
it so he doesn't get there to river with
he
it.
folded them pre because he knows you're a station. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh shit, you guys are onto something.
Yeah, it's funny because I think that we don't have to linger on this point, but I do find most spewy people are station. I'm a spewy
Yeah, yeah.
station. You know, like I'm. You know, it's hard to combat. Like, but the thing that you're pointing to, which I think is really worth highlighting, and this is why I always, because you're saying like this, the step most people skip is why did I make that mistake? I actually view that as that step gets skipped because the answer for most people is just way too hard to find. And I view it as like an in-game problem of like you're not, when you play the game in a what I call like a performative way, like I'm trying to perform good decisions. It you have this like network of decisioning that comes together to what you think is a good decision, and it could be any one of those things, and that's way harder to like come to a decision about what was wrong. When you play the game in a like a form a hypothesis and run an experiment kind of way, and it is so much easier to dial in on why I made this decision, you know? So it's so much easier to be like, well, I called here because I thought they would like, I bet flop. I thought they're going to float too much. And then I thought they're going to barrel off too much. Like I'm against this whale. And so like, I have a specific kind of hand I'm expecting to see at showdown, right? Like I have a specific, and if I call, I know what confirms my hypothesis or not, right? Like I have this idea. And I don't think one of the things I brought up with, I can't remember who, but I think there was a certain thought processes get stigmatized within poker, and I think people then like the community ditches them. And I think one of them was like calling for information, like you know what I'm saying though. And
Yeah.
but there's this point.
That.
I have students all the time though who are like they have this really clear hypothesis of like the spot will either be under bluffed and I expect these kinds of hands, or it'll be over bluffed and I expect these kinds of hands. And it's like, well, you play this guy all the time. Like you have a really good hypothesis to take to this river and see which one it is. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. The full podcast with Owen goes live this Friday, September 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So stay tuned and see you then.